So because Cap shaved his beard for this movie, I'm going to shave my baby beard for this review. I'll be back in a second. So, admittedly, this review is going to be really hard to do because I don't know what I'm going to talk about because the Russos and Marvel Studios have done such a good job of keeping shit under lock and key for this movie. What they've done in the trailers, change things from the actual movie for the trailers and the teasers and all that, is a lot more than, or at least a lot more noticeable than previous movies, because they've done it with Thor Ragnarok and Infinity War and other movies, so it's not too much of a surprise that they have done it this time around, but they've done it to a bit more of a scale than those previous films that I just mentioned. So I'm really I feel like I've got a gun to my head in this review. So I'm going to try my best not to go too much into spoilers, of course, like I did with Infinity War. And speaking of that movie, what I will say is that this movie, Endgame, is very different from that movie in one respect, being that it's not really Thanos' movie. Now, Infinity War, as I said in my review for that movie, still love it by the way, I love the fact that that movie was solely about Thanos and his journey, his goal, because in order to understand him, we have to sort of go on the journey with him, right? So I liked how that movie focused on him a bit more, right? To understand his reasons and his goal and all that. So that's what I liked that movie for. This movie is good because as like the part two in this saga or this chapter or this story or whatever, it focuses on the heroes and everything that they lost, and it focuses on them having to move on, which is seen pretty much in all the trailers. I mean, that's really all they can show because there is a lot of shit that goes on in this movie. Like a lot of stuff goes on in this movie. So without spoiling anything, it is probably the best part, or probably the best way that they could have told this story, being Infinity War and Endgame. First, focus on the villain, make him center focus of the first film, show us his reasons and his goal, and make us understand that. And when he achieves it, focus on the heroes and their loss in the second part to this story. So I think that was probably the best way they could have told this conclusion to this 10-11 year journey. And the movie does focus more on the core Avengers, being Tony, Cap, Thor, Bruce, Natasha, and Clint, which makes sense seeing as this is, like, as I said, this is the conclusion of 10, now 11 years, so you do want to focus on them more, and the movie does, but thankfully it doesn't just focus on them. It doesn't just focus on them and no one else. It focuses on pretty much all that survived, which is also to be expected, but it gives us moments with them, which with pretty much all the surviving characters like Ant-Man or Clint or Thor or whatever. It gives us moments with each and every one of them and focusing on the pain and the loss that they're feeling. And that is something that I kind of expected going in, but, you know, wasn't too sure if they were going to do it because there is so much going on in this movie, but yet they found a way to do that, and I am so glad that they did because it really deepened the movie and this two-part story, really. And holy crap, man, some characters, a fair few actually, get taken in directions that are crazy. Like not just one character. There are, I'm not going to say how many, but there are characters, more than one, that get taken in directions, and the writers and the directors do things with characters that some are expected. I expected them to do some things with certain characters, and the things that they did with other characters, I did not expect. It was some comedic, some dark, you don't know. And that's one thing I will give credit to this movie, is that this is probably the darkest movie of the entire MCU so far. I mean, Civil War got pretty dark, Infinity War got a little darker, but this, I have to say, because of what they're dealing with and what they have to move on from, this is probably the darkest MCU film. I mean, I honestly for a second thought that this was going to be MA because of some of the shit that happens, but it's not. Still got that PG-13 rating. So yeah, I really like what they were doing in this movie. I do want to talk about Captain Marvel for just a quick second, because she is the newest addition to this cinematic universe, and her movie only came out like a couple months ago. So I can't not talk about her, because I was, if you go and look back in my Infinity War review, I was pumped for Captain Marvel. I love badass female characters, okay? Call me a feminist or whatever, as I said before. I don't care. I just like to see that shit. It's fun. But as it is, she was kind of just as bland and boring as she was in her own movie, which is weird to say. I mean, by this point, we should be invested in her. But I just don't feel that invested in her. Like, I don't care about her enough. And she does have awesome moments in the movie, definitely, because she's Captain Marvel. But those awesome moments really don't hit me as hard as, say, the other characters in the MCU, like, for example, Black Widow, Scarlet Witch, Valkyrie, Nebula, and Gamora. I just don't feel as invested in Captain Marvel as I do those other characters that have already been established in the MCU. So I don't know. I guess it just comes down to how they're doing this Captain Marvel in this cinematic universe. I think they need to. I think this is my theory. Okay, this is my theory. I think Captain Marvel will be the new Thor, because if you remember with Thor, his first two movies, he did not resonate with audiences well. And even in the Avengers movies, he was liked, but not to the extent that so many of the other characters were. So I think that as Captain Marvel goes along in this cinematic universe, they will have to make some changes to her character so that she becomes a better character for the films. Yes? I think we can all agree on that. Really quickly though, the ending was, I'm not spoiling anything. I'm trying not to spoil anything, but the ending was almost like Lord of the Rings. Okay, it almost had like that and Hunger Games as well. It almost had that feeling of, okay, we're seeing like 10 different endings here. It almost felt like that, but then when I started to sit back and think about it, I was like, nah, it wasn't quite as long. The ending was not quite as repetitive as those movies that or as those franchises that I just mentioned. It wasn't quite as long as those endings, but it still it felt good. It was the way they ended off was probably not only the best ending for this movie, not only the best ending for these two movies, Infinity War and Endgame, but the best ending that we could have ever gotten for this 11-year journey. And as I end the video now, I just want to say, and I don't really think anyone else is going to say this, but I will say this. I want to say, as someone who loves films and is a big superhero fan since he was a kid, thank you to Marvel, Kevin Feige, and all the other directors who have contributed into this cinematic universe. You have shown me, someone who loves movies and wants to be a filmmaker one day, you've shown me that anything is possible. This giant cinematic universe that they have built, never done before to this scale. And it has showed me that even this movie with the effects and everything that they do, it has shown me that when you put your mind to something, shit can get done. You can make a badass movie like this movie is. And as far as I'm concerned, this is just as good as Infinity War and some of my other favorite MCU movies in this collection, this legacy that they have built. So thank you to everyone involved in this cinematic universe. It means a lot to me. This is coming from a real fan. I've been a fan of this whole thing since I was like 10 or something. So yeah, thank you guys for making this for me. It feels like it was made for me, but that's how we should all feel. Anyway, I look forward to another great 10 years with these characters. So I will continue to review these movies and shows as well. So I'll see you in the next video.